Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. Fight number 3, Dan Argueta versus Isaac Dulgarian. This is a compelling fight because these guys are really similar. Argueta's 3 years older, but they're the same size pretty much, both 5'7", both wrestling tanks. Uh, Argueta, we've seen a little more of. He's 8-1 overall as a pro. We also saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, throw down with Ricky Tercios. Dulgarian's making his debut in the UFC here, and he's 5-0 outside the UFC. Dulgarian, both these guys, I believe, are Division II wrestlers, according to Dulgarian, anyway. Uh, Dulgarian, that's what, I mean, every one of his fights, they're like perfect performances. He's got 3 TKO victories, 2 submissions, and they all look the same. I can't tell the difference between any of these fights. He throws a leg kick, takes his opponent down, gets into full mount immediately and beats the living shit out of them unless they give up a submission. And the fight's over within like 2 minutes. That's how all 5 of his fights look. I mean, he's on like that's how he would look if he was the best fighter in the world, which I'm assuming he's not because whatever. They just got to play the odds there. But I'm saying he's looked immaculate so far. And I bring that up to say I haven't seen deficiencies. I haven't seen any holes in his game, but he's done his part. You know, I can't fault him there for smoking weak competition. This will be a step up, though, because he's fighting a guy, Dan Argueta, who I know I keep going back and forth on Argueta and Argueta. But either way, Dan is a proven fighter, proven to be tough. He's got 5-round experience outside the UFC. And inside the UFC, we've seen him in a losing effort fight some really good fighters. Damon Jackson, who's also on this card, beat him by decision. And I was really sure Damon, if he won that fight, was going to find a finish. But Dan was able to survive. Damon Jackson backpacked him for, I don't know, like 10 minutes overall in that fight. I really don't even know. Could have been like 14. It was fucking a dominant victory for Damon Jackson. But still, for a guy like Damon, who's a bigger guy and a bona fide finisher, you know, a really good finisher, it was impressive for Dan to survive like that. He showed a lot of grit, as he did in his loss to Ricky Tercios on The Ultimate Fighter. I did think he was out-hustled a little bit in that one. Kind of, you know, it seemed like maybe he didn't have much left in round 3, but he was still able to survive there. And, you know, with just his output in that fight, that was still overall a close fight. You know, maybe not that close, but you know, Ricky clearly won it in round 3, but it was a good performance from Dan Argueta because Ricky ended up winning the show. He's, you know, proven to be a damn good fighter, and Dan did for, you know, a while anyway, have a tooth and nail battle with him. So I do trust Dan Argueta. He's only been finished once, and it was as an amateur, round 2 submission, and that was against a guy who had a 5-1 record as an amateur when Dan was making his debut. So it's forgivable. And since then, he's only taken on really good fighters, and as he's progressed, and he's looked really good. Took out Myron Santos, just ground him out for 12 minutes till he got the finish. Had, I think, a 5-round win over Diego Silva outside the UFC, and that was a battle in which he took over. You know, he had a rough first round. I think he threw a kick and got taken down, but still, Dan was able to clearly take over the fight down the stretch. And even in round 1 there, I thought he did a good job fighting back to win that round. So I really trust Dan Argueta as a fighter, and that's why I'm picking him, because I have something I can trust, which is, you know, his body of work so far. And he's held up, you know, he's held up in good fights, his cardio. He's, you know, even in a losing effort, like I said, to Ricky Tercios, he still didn't get put away. And Isaac Dulgarian, I haven't seen him in any sort of precarious position whatsoever. Even his 4 amateur victories are all in round 1. He's only got 3 years, I think he said, of experience altogether fighting. And if you add up his cage time, it's like 2 minutes, you know, or 10 minutes. It's nothing. So I just, as much as I think he's got a really high ceiling based on the talent he's shown against garbage competition, I can't trust him to beat Dan Argueta. Doesn't mean I can't bet on him, which I'm absolutely going to do, but I can't trust him. Also, it's important to mention Isaac Dulgarian is a Glory MMA fighter, so He's I don't know where he's training, but I know he spent half his camp in Glory, and the other half wherever the hell he is. So he's whatever. That's a factor. It'd be stupid of me not to mention it if it's something I know. So whatever. Make of that whatever you will. But I do think Isaac Dulgarian, despite only getting round one finishes, there might be some value on him winning a decision at plus 600. If he's able to win the wrestling battle against Dan Argueta, and he has enough intangibles, because I'm sure Dan will test him in many different ways in a 15-minute fight, then who knows? Might be at plus 600. I'll throw down a penny or two, try to win something on that. But my prediction is Dan Argueta wins the fight. I do think there's a chance he takes over down the stretch, because that's just because I'm guessing, really. Isaac Dulgarian, if he's finding himself in spots he's never had to deal with, and it's against a good fighter like Dan, who's, more of a finisher than he is a grinder, but still he's a grinder. And, of course, if Dan is winning the fight, or either guy is winning the fight, the other guy's going to be on his back in uncomfortable positions. And even though I know Dan can handle himself well with a good jiu-jitsu guy and a good threat on top of him, I don't know if Dulgarian can. So I think if that was the show itself, it would show itself in rounds 2 and 3. I'd bet on Dan Argueta, round 2, flat, plus 650, round 3, flat, plus 1,000. But those are just sprinkles, and it's really a hope. My prediction is Dan Argueta wins a decision. But again, there's too many unknowns for me to really bet on anything here. I just sprinkled some shit on Dan because I'm a degenerate. Also, Dulgarian, if he wins the wrestling battle, I do trust Dan to survive. So I think Dulgarian decision plus 600 covers his primary path to victory, even though he doesn't have a decision victory and he's only got round 1 finishes in his 9 fights altogether, pro and amateur. I still think just having seen Dan Argueta survive against bona fide good fighters, if Dulgarian was to win, it would be by decision. So I did sprinkle something on him to win by decision at plus 600. We'll see what happens. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos, and don't forget to comment below with your thoughts.